everyone, Ann Wyatt here, Vice President of Client Success for Health Fitness. Welcome to the Health Fitness Podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to the Health Fitness Podcast. It is March, that means it's National Nutrition Month. Today we're diving into one of the most overlooked drivers of corporate wellness, and that is nutrition. So every organization, they expect energy, focus, innovation, resilience, of course. But the real question really comes down to, are we fueling it? So today, how employers can approach nutrition in a practical and scalable way is what our focus will be. And we're also going to talk about why it matters. And to help me do that, you're going to understand why I've asked her. Her name is Amanda Clark. She's a senior product manager for Health Fitness. But more importantly, she's a registered dietitian nutritionist, and she's a master certified health education specialist. So Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. I think you're the right person for this topic. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, Ann.
So if we think about what's happening today, the modern workplace, what does nutrition support look like? There's weight loss classes. That's the traditional way. I think most people think, I'm going to check the box. That's what we're offering. But there's so much more to it. And it's not just about food choices. It's really about how you shape the environment. And that's where you can really make an impact at the workplace, right? So talk to me about, what does that look like?
Most certainly, the environment plays a big role. We're kind of products of our environment. It's been said that a toxic environment can make it difficult for anybody to make good choices, no matter how hard they try. And employers can often play a big role in creating an environment that supports those nutritious food choices. And that can look a lot of different ways. For example, an employer that has an on-site cafeteria often will partner with their food service individuals to help create some healthy options. Sometimes they'll offer lower cost for those options to make it easier for people to choose or want to choose those options that maybe have more fruits and vegetables and maybe less added sugar or saturated fat. You may have a situation where you have vending machines, and it's amazing what they can do with vending machines now, and how you can have much more nutritious options even in a vending machine, whether that's beverages or even meals. Is kind of incredible what's out there.
We talked a little bit about that when we did a little bit of a prep to talk about today. And I know we mentioned when you go to an airport, even there's some great options that you can have now that didn't exist for the longest time. And so I'm so happy to see that shift overall.
Yeah. There's some great things out there. I know I myself have had that experience too, and have gotten some wraps with lots of veggies and whole grains in them that I don't recall seeing in vending machines before. So that's important. A lot of times employers provide education and resources for people too, to find credible information on how they can implement nutritious eating habits. There's all kinds of tools out there to help with things like meal planning, and some employers even have dietitians or access to dietitians. Maybe that's someone on site, or maybe it's part of their benefits design, and giving people access to a dietitian through a telehealth platform or that sort of a solution. And those are becoming increasingly common too. So for those people who maybe have a chronic condition that they're trying to manage, where nutrition is a really important part of that, that's an option. But it isn't always condition management either. Sometimes it's just supporting those employees who want to make some healthier choices for themselves and their families.
I'm always visiting our clients, of course, right? And one of the things that I noticed was so many are doing much more around healthy eating. So that was a win for me. But it went beyond that. And when you talk about environment, I remember we were at a grand opening, and a young gentleman, young professional just coming into the workforce, came up to my table when I was talking about our program. And this facility happens to have a great demonstration kitchen, and they use the heck out of it with lots of opportunities with cooking classes. But he asked the simple question of, I don't know how to use the different utensils. I don't even know how to cut things. Is there ever going to be a class around that? And I said, oh, well, you're in luck, because we have a knife skills class that we're going to be offering. And it was just something that simple, but made such a difference for him. And I think about so many people that you'd love to assume that they know how to cook, but that could be part of it too. So I think you mentioned education. That's so important.
Absolutely. I've been a dietitian for a long time and I've worked with people to change their eating habits. And some of the most
Yeah.
common barriers are sometimes it is those basic nutrition skills. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's just having the time and knowing what to do there. So convenience is a big factor,
Yeah.
and of course wanting it to taste good and finding
Right.
ways to
Right.
create those nutritious meals with good flavor too.
What kind of education are you seeing out there just at the workplace? I'm going beyond the social media and the influencers. Like, what's happening out there in the workplace that we're seeing from an education standpoint?
There's a lot of different ways that education is being delivered. Sometimes it's newsletters; those are usually really accessible, so people tend to like
Hmm.
those. There are different digital ways of delivering content and education, whether those are webinars or even videos. We see more and more of that, and even things like cooking demos, like you mentioned
Yeah.
before. We do have clients that do offer those, whether it's in person or even a cooking demo that's done via a webinar to have a little bit broader reach. Those kinds of things can be especially engaging for employees
Yeah.
because they often have those really practical tips. And I think that's often a key is whatever that education looks like. It's one thing to tell someone what to do, but that's for most people, that's really not the barrier. It's not the knowing what to do. Sometimes it's the inspiration and the being able to set those goals. So it can also take other forms like coaching. Sometimes it can be paired with we have a lot of personal trainers here. Sometimes it's paired with that, whether it's coming from a dietitian or just even some basic nutrition education that's within their scope, to provide tools and tips and recipes to get people inspired to try to make some of those changes. So it's kind of matching that motivation up with the person, some tools to help them actually implement the changes they're looking to do in their lifestyle. So it can take a lot of different forms depending on what the person needs.
Well, I know even you mentioned having recipes available. I know I've met with our, a couple episodes ago, I met with our partner from Fit On, Russell, who's the founder there. And one of the great things that we did at some of our regional meetings that we had for our staff from all across the country was we had some sites where they prepared some of the recipes that are available from that resource from the nutrition aspect of that app Fit On. What a great idea. And I tried things that I hadn't even found yet in that website. So there's so many cool ways you can circle it back and bring it all together and make it all make sense, right? That you
Yeah.
use this app. There's so many things you can get from it besides exercise with the nutrition content. We talked a little bit about registered dietitians on site with the workforce, with the people that are using them. How does a company get started with that? What does it look like if you're interacting with them?
Dietitian can bring a lot of things to the table when it comes to that experience for the participants they're working with. Many dietitians will do those one-on-one consultations, so that can be on a regular basis or even just a
Mhm.
one-time consult. But many people like meeting with their dietitian on a
Yeah,
regular basis because they can set goals and really work on what a healthy eating pattern looks like for them. And they
yeah,
can make really specific recommendations if a person has a medical condition, if they have a food allergy that they're dealing with, maybe they have some family challenges or others in their family that have some things going on that the dietitian can support them with. So there's that
yeah,
one-on-one piece. And then oftentimes too, a dietitian can be involved in a lot of that broader programming as well. So they may be a person who can design and lead an educational program or a program that's focused on healthy eating for women who are in menopause or
yeah,
perimenopause, or a program that's focused on weight management or just general healthy eating. We've had dietitians do a lot of different things like that. Cooking
yeah,
demos are another great example. It's another fun way to engage
yeah,
people. Sometimes they're out there handing out different options or snacks to try that are maybe a little bit more nutritious and helping people find those little shortcuts that can help them weave a little bit more healthy eating into their day and helping them get started wherever it works for them, sometimes with something really small that can inspire additional behavior change. So in
yeah.
addition to having that nutrition expertise, a dietitian will often bring the behavior change element too, which is really important to creating those sustained behaviors.
Oh yeah, I even heard recently of site where they took one of our clients where they took a little field trip for lunch, and the dietitian spoke with them about how this is how you should order at a restaurant. These are the things you need to be thinking
Yeah,
about. So it was a real life
yeah,
example. I've seen classes where they're talking about mocktails. You
yep,
name it, they're doing it. There's fun little my favorite one recently was a passport program where they talked about you could get stamps by trying different healthy foods from different cultures. And so really just thinking of all the different ways that you can impact your workforce with some guidance. And I think that
Yeah.
nutritionists can really do that. So,
Yeah, very practical. Another thing that dietitians sometimes even do is grocery store tours. That's just
oh,
another
yes.
example of something that brings, that practicality when people are making their food choices when they're grocery shopping a lot of times or in a restaurant. So helping people really find those ways that they can make those good choices can help.
Yeah. Reading those labels is not always fun, but important.
Yes.
I have a question for you around GLP-1s because we talked a lot about weight loss earlier, probably last year. It's never going away, right? This is here to stay. Can you tell me how nutrition support plays a role when it comes to GLP-1s and how a company can really look at that when all is said and done?
GLP-1s are a really hot topic right now
Yeah.
because they're gaining a lot of popularity. They're being used more broadly, and they're effective. They're
Yeah.
probably the most effective weight loss drugs we've had on the market to date, and there are more of them
Mhm.
in the pipeline. So this is not
Right.
going away anytime soon.
No.
And when it comes to the GLP-1 drugs, so they're not really new. They've actually been around for a couple of decades, and they were traditionally used for treating type 2 diabetes and still are, but many of them are
Right.
being approved at higher doses for weight loss. And the challenge with those is they were not studied to be used by themselves. They were studied in
Right.
conjunction with lifestyle. So even though a person might be taking this medication for weight loss, if they don't have the lifestyle pieces dialed in, they can run into a lot of challenges with being able to sustain that weight loss or even some side effects of nutrition deficiencies. And some of the drugs cause side effects anyway that can be addressed through nutritional habits, whether it's things like nausea or constipation. Those are kind of common things people will run into. So, what a lot of employers have done is pair those prescriptions or access to those GLP-1s in their health plan with services where their individuals can access a dietitian, whether
Yeah.
that's through telehealth or another solution. Sometimes it may be a lifestyle coach too
Coach,
that can
right.
refer
Yeah.
to a diet out to dietitians or someone with more expertise when needed. But making sure that they have that lifestyle support so they're not running into nutrition deficiencies and they actually are getting the biggest benefit from those drugs that they're taking.
Thank you for helping with that because I know it's so important for people to hear that. There's so many buzzwords and hot topics that are going on right now. So I do want to ask you about a couple that I've heard of, and I just want you to tell us what we need to know about them because I know
Yeah.
we can assume that they're good or not. You tell me. The first
Yeah.
one, and I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but I'm still going to ask it. Fiber maxing. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, fiber maxing is a pretty big buzzword in 2026, and it is, as far as nutrition trends go, probably one of the better ones I've seen out there.
Okay.
Because when it comes to fiber, most people are not eating enough of it, and fiber has a lot of things it does for us. It helps you feel full. Eating a nutritious high fiber diet can help with things like managing blood glucose, managing cholesterol, keeping those things in check. It keeps things moving through the gut, keeps the digestive system functioning the way it should. But most people get just a fraction of what they really need. So the trend of fiber maxing in a lot of cases is people focusing on eating more sources of fiber. And the good thing about that is fiber only comes from plants. So
Right.
it often means they're eating more fruits and vegetables and whole grains and nuts and seeds, things like that that have a lot of good nutrients in them anyway that we want to encourage. What I would say with fiber maxing is like anything, it's also possible to take it a little too far. So, what
Yeah.
I always tell people if you're trying to increase your fiber, that's great. You definitely want to make sure you're meeting those recommendations, but not going in excess either.
Yeah.
And also adding it gradually. If you start
Yeah.
eating a bunch of fiber and you're not used to it, that can cause
You're
some
not going to feel great.
uncomfortable side effects and getting plenty of fluids is important too. Drinking enough water is important when you're adding fiber. But on the whole, being focused on adding those nutrient rich foods is great.
Yeah. I know you talked about having too much. I know, some of the weight loss programs out there focus on points and assigning them to things. And of course, sometimes vegetables have 0 points because of the fiber involved. I remember talking
Yeah.
to a member at one of our sites, and she said, I eat one of those bags of baby carrots every day. and I'm not losing weight. I'm like, well, there's still calories in that. So you gotta, you gotta have the balance, right?
Exactly. Balance and moderation with everything, and that's a
Right.
lot of carrots.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of carrots. All right. The another one I want to talk about is because I see this in my social media feeds a lot. Functional beverages. What do we are they good? Should we drink them? Should we not? Like, what do we need to know about those?
Yeah, they're kind of all over the place right now. And functional beverages can be pretty much any beverage that promises some kind of a benefit. So it can encompass everything from sports drinks to kombucha to they almost are advertised like healthier options for sodas that have
Yeah.
prebiotics or some of those different vitamins or minerals or other ingredients in them. And they're
Right.
a rapidly growing part of the beverage industry, and some of that's being driven by younger generations who are choosing less alcohol. So some of them are kind of
Yeah.
tending toward these kind of beverages instead. So what I would say about them is the marketing is a little bit ahead of the science. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to be mindful of what because they might be promising energy, they might be promising immune health or gut health, but I think it's important to kind of manage expectations for what they can deliver. The other thing I
Yeah.
would say is depending on what the ingredients are in them, for certain people who have a medical condition or are taking certain medications that could interact with some of the ingredients in these products, which can vary widely, it's pretty important to be aware of what you're taking and how it
Yeah.
could interact. Some of them are almost like a dietary supplement in a beverage. So if a person is taking another form of dietary supplements and they're getting these beverages and they have overlapping ingredients, you could run the risk of getting too much of something as well. So I would say
Yeah.
just a little bit of buyer beware, be a mindful
Yeah.
consumer. Yeah.
I love that you said the marketing is ahead of the science. That is so true and so much around nutrition. I think in fitness too,
Yes.
but specifically in
Yes.
nutrition. All right, one more I have a question about, and I don't know that it's a new topic, but it's certainly something you still hear about. It's processed foods. And I know that not all are bad, but talk to me about those.
Processed foods are tricky because I think a lot of people want to kind of say, well, it's processed, it's bad. If it's not processed, it's good. But it's
Right.
really not that simple because when you really look at what processing means, even slicing an apple is technically a form of processing. It's minimal, but it's still technically processing. And then you hear the word ultra processed foods, and there is no single standard definition. There are different definitions out there. But by some of them, that could be 70% of what's in the grocery store. And if you're giving people the message to avoid almost three-quarters of what's in the grocery store, that's pretty challenging to do. So
Yeah.
when it comes to those foods, it's important to really look at the nutritional value because processing can be beneficial in some cases. There are times when we need foods that are shelf stable for various reasons.
Right.
They can contribute to things like food safety. So that's important too. So, what I would say is when you look at the nutritional value of the food, that's really what matters. So, just to give you one example, infant formula would, by most definitions, be considered an ultra processed food, but it's
Point.
also a critical source of nutrition for a lot of babies. And
Right.
when it comes to certain foods, of course, I think most of us know things like, you're not going to get a lot of nutrients if you're drinking a lot of sugary drinks or eating a
Right.
lot of chips or cookies or candy. Everything in moderation and small portions, of course, but those are the kinds of things that are good to limit from a processed food standpoint. But there are also options like frozen vegetables without added
Mhm.
salt or sauces, or canned
Mhm.
fruits or canned beans are a staple I always have in my pantry that
Right.
can actually be really good sources of nutrition that also contribute from the standpoint of convenience and
Right.
making, especially when you live in the Midwest like I do, and it's winter and we don't have a lot of fresh foods growing locally, those
Right.
can be ways to get some good nutrition in during a time where things are traveling quite a ways to get to us in terms of produce.
Got it. Well, thank you for that. That's good to know for all those areas. All right. My last question about nutrition. What advice can you give to our listeners, to our leaders out there that make decisions around these areas for supporting employees? Like, where can they start?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say one of the best places to start is with your audience. To
Yeah.
go to your individuals who you're working with, your employees, and ask them what they're looking for. What are the barriers? What are the challenges that they
Yeah.
have? Because then you can design programming or work with a partner to design programming that really fits those needs and will best serve what they're looking for. Even delivering some kinds of basic education, sometimes that can be a doorway into other options that might be available to offer to
Hmm.
your individuals at your location. Other options may be uh, cooking demos like we talked about before,
Right.
or even looking at if you do have a food service vendor that is managing vending machines or a cafeteria, reaching out to them and seeing what can they offer, maybe what have they done for other sites as well that may
Right.
benefit you.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, I think we're just about out of time, but you're not going to escape my cookie quiz, that's for sure. So I want to know how you're taking care of yourself. And my first question is really appropriate because I want to know, especially celebrating National Nutrition Month, what's your favorite healthy snack?
My favorite healthy snack is those little mini sweet peppers, those little ones that come in a
Oh,
bag, the red
yeah,
and
yeah. You
yellow and
guys.
orange ones. I love those with a little bit of cottage cheese. They're convenient. All I have to do is wash them
Okay.
and add some cottage cheese for protein and
All right.
all
It's like
set.
the scooper for the cottage cheese. I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, there you
What's your
go.
favorite? Yeah, right. What's your favorite form of workout right now?
Oh, anything that gets me outside, even with some snow on the ground. I love to be
Okay.
outside walking, hiking, when it gets a little warmer, biking or kayaking, but anything outdoors.
Okay. And then my last one will be what's your favorite way to recover or recharge?
Anything that gets me outside in nature or spending time with my dog. He's a
That's a
pretty big
twofer.
source of joy. Yeah, maybe a walk or a hike with him.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks to our audience for joining as well. If you liked what you heard, please hit subscribe and we'll talk to you next month. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found today's discussion both thought-provoking and enjoyable. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and share this episode with your colleagues and friends. We'd really love for you to stay connected with us. Until next time, take care, stay active, and stay curious.